Hey, that looks a lot better. Okay, great. The audio should be working this time. Please let me know if it's not. I do see the green bars lit up at the bottom of the screen. This should be good. Um, but yeah, welcome to the live stream. I think part of it was me trying to use the Brave browser to do the live stream. Uh, the Brave browser, I guess it just doesn't play as well with YouTube as Chrome, which would make sense because Chrome is a Google product. And of course, YouTube is also owned by Google. So it makes sense that the stream audio is going to be better. It's probably a privacy thing. It's probably microphone access, and Brave is not letting YouTube access my microphone, my built-in microphone on my computer. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. I appreciate the viewer that called that out. It's it's much appreciated. I hate that I've wasted some of your time doing these multiple iterations, but there's still a lot for me to learn, as you can tell. So thanks for bearing with me. But yeah, I'll be here in Bangkok for about 3 more weeks. My flight's booked for 3 weeks from today. I do need to print out my e-visa, so I haven't gotten around to doing that. If you go to Vietnam, you'll need to apply for a visa in advance. So it's one of those countries, at least for Americans, but also I think a lot of people from all over the world, they have to get a visa in advance. So it's different from Thailand, where you can just show up. I think you're getting 60 days on arrival now, and then you can extend. Hey, Isaac, what's up? Good to see you. Yeah, I think it was a browser issue. I think that's why the audio wasn't coming through. But yeah, so with Thailand, you could just come here, you get 60 days on arrival. You look at other countries in the region, Philippines, I think you get 30 days on arrival. Cambodia, when I went to Cambodia, it was $35. So you show up you fly into Phnom Penh Airport, you pay $35, and they give you the visa for 30 days. So a lot of these countries, you can just show up, and if you're coming with a U.S. passport, and I imagine UK is probably similar. The EU countries are probably similar. There's probably some overlap there. There's probably substantial overlap there. But with with Vietnam, you've got to apply in advance, and some people, they don't catch it until last minute. Some people exaggerated a bit to me. So I was reading online, like, you better apply really far in advance because you don't know if you'll get it. It took me 3 days the first time, and then I got a rejection. And then I applied fixing the middle name aspect. Because a lot of Americans, and I imagine other people from the Western democracies, they just have a first name and a last name on a lot of forms. And in Vietnam, you've got to include your middle name. So I fixed it and then sent it back, and that was an additional 3 days. But I've got it. I just got to go print it out, which I'll do tomorrow. There's a print shop I passed by in this neighborhood where I'm staying in Bangkok. In fact, I'll pull that up just so you guys have a sense of where I'm staying. Not my exact address, but, well, you can figure it out because of the because of the blue dot. So that's something I'll show after I leave Thailand. But anyway, there's a print shop nearby, and that was super convenient. I can show this other part of the city. Let's see here. That's what I'll do. I'll share what I've got planned for the rest of my time here. But yeah, so I got the visa. I just got to go print it out. I'll have that in hand with my passport. I don't know yet if they want me to have an onward ticket. If it's something I need to get, I already know where I'm going after Vietnam, or have chatted with me in person. You know where I'm headed after. But I don't know how long I want to spend in Vietnam. So I go back and forth on, do I want to book the flight 3 months out? Because if I'm, for whatever reason, not digging it, then I'd like to be able to leave earlier. And, I don't want to be in the situation where it's like, it's not for me for whatever reason. but I've got to stay here for 3 months. So that's kind of in the back of my mind because I know, some people, uh, certain countries resonate with them more so than others. And so I always just, try to keep that in mind. But I don't know if they're going to require that or not. So it may be a situation where I book it and then, if I book it through a US provider, I think they often do a 24-hour refund guarantee with Chase. So I could just book it at the airport when I'm about to fly to Vietnam, show that to the personnel, and then when I get through, cancel the flight, rebook it for, when I want to head out within my visa uh, guidelines. But feel free to, chime in with any questions or thoughts that you guys have. Um, yeah, I've been going to this spot, Mahanag Market, and I finally got some durian I loved. It was really, really tasty, and it was sort of medium ripe. And when I tried it before, it's overripe. And I think when people talk about the extreme smell, they're often talking about rarer varieties or overripe durian. And so I tried it where it was like underripe and or medium ripeness, and I liked it a lot. I'm looking for a photo. Nobody's posted. You can't really see any photos of it, but yeah, a great vendor for the durian at Mahanak. It's like 180 per kilo. So the one that I had was right at 1 kilo. And so I paid about 180 baht. This is a great fruit market. Probably my favorite in Bangkok. It's open 24/7. I've been there at like 3, 4 in the morning, and I was so confused when I found it the first time because I was staying nearby. There's like a market called Bobe Market. This is a basically popular for the textile industry. This area, you could almost say, I would use the phrase design district. Um, there's a lot of different clothing vendors throughout here, but Mahanak is fruit focused. I remember walking, like finding it at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, what are all these people doing out here? Because I didn't understand Thailand at that point. So I didn't realize a lot of people, they kind of chill out during the day and they're staying up late night working. And if they're selling fruit to various like restaurants in the city, then they need to be up early before all those restaurants open, even before breakfast hour. So it's yeah, it's really interesting for sure. Oh, Chris, hey, welcome to the channel, Chris. You may have sent me a message, and I did want to get back to you on that in regards to visas. So I use the education visa, and you can use it. I think with my school, it's up to 18 months. I've heard of some people pushing it 2 years or longer. I look at it like a medium term visa. The idea being like you can't just study Thai forever. So I use the education visa. I signed up, and I'm not sponsored by them, although I should ask about that. Uh, for referrals, but AAA language school, and they're based in Ratchathuli, and they, they trying to describe. So they do classes. I think it's like 6 hours per week. It's like when I was going anyway, it was something like Monday, Tuesday, Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 hours or 3 hours, and then maybe it was only twice a week. I'm nearing the end of my visa, and so my classes are over with. But basically, you study Thai a few hours per day, a few times per week, with a teacher and some other students, and you get Well, I got, it was like 3 months with renewable three times, roughly something like that. It was like 2 months and then 3 months renewable, two more times, but it works out to 11 months, and you can go up to, I guess, 17 months if I added an additional six. Thanks so much, Jay. Much appreciated. That's great to hear. I think it was a browser issue, but I'm really glad that I was able to pivot over to Google Chrome. I was using Brave, and I think Brave was not letting YouTube access my microphone. But yeah, so with with Thailand, I think the Ed visa is great. I've heard of some people saying it contrasts or conflicts with the elite visa. That's why I would suggest not going for the cheapest one. I selected one that's associated with the Ministry of Education. There are schools that are cheaper, but I suspect that it may reflect poorly on the official channels if you do want to get an elite visa later on. I think personally it's worthwhile to come for a year before committing to an elite visa, because some people may find, I can't acclimate to the hot weather. I'm struggling to learn the language for whatever reason. And so that's why I'm a fan of trying it a year, because the elite visa, technically, like, it's quite expensive, but I think it could be worth it for some people. But those people might want to find that out over the course of a year, as opposed to committing to 5, staying a year, and then deciding to pivot elsewhere. It is quite expensive, but it's, in the grand scheme of things, if you really enjoy Thailand, it's better to have, better to be prepared financially for it. But yeah, I would say to leave. Now, I don't know if things have changed, right? At the time, they would allow like roughly one, I would say basically one exit and return, and you can be gone for something like, I think it's up to 30 days in the span of that 11 months. So if you needed to go back home, if you wanted to go to a neighboring country on vacation, but it's not a visa that's as friendly to coming and going a lot. Now, I have heard with the Muay Thai visa, they are more friendly to entries and exits, because they figure if somebody's studying Muay Thai, maybe they're a professional fighter and they need to go fight in another country, and then come back, and then they're in training camp again, or they're rejuvenating or recuperating, whatever it may be. So that's do your own research and just check into some of this stuff, because I don't know the specifics of your situation, and I can only give general information, share my own experience, general information based on my own experience. But and in the last year, I've been able to travel around Thailand. So technically, I have to come back to Bangkok to do my extensions, right? So if I want to go live in the islands for 6 months, understand halfway through that, you're going to have to come back and do your extension in Bangkok. And so budget for that as well, budget for the case that you may need to fly back and forth to Bangkok every few months. And that's what I did. And then for my final period, I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to stay in Bangkok for the last few months, because I've seen a lot in Thailand, and Bangkok has a lot of cool stuff that you can only really find in Bangkok. It's nice too to be in like a safe big city. Like, Bangkok's a huge city. It feels really safe to me. And so that's something else that I love about it. I don't want to leave, but that's just part of traveling, is unfortunately, if you're traveling long enough, you are going to have to go from a place that you're happy in to a different place that's part of the unknown that I may be more happy in, right? Or I may like just as much. So we'll just have to give it a chance. But yeah, this fruit market, really awesome spot. I'm going to have to go there probably a couple more times before I leave Bangkok to pick up more durian and mangosteen. Those are my two favorite fruits, the king of fruits and the queen of fruits. And then this dim sum spot is awesome. It's like these people are doing it out of their kitchen in their house, and they've got this alleyway, and they've got like 2 tables. But it's fantastic. These are the best, the soup dumplings. And then they also do the buns. What else? What else? I do want to check out the Green Lung. So that's been a really big one on my mind. I can show you guys where that's at. Here it is. So Sri Nakan Kuyan Khan Park and Botanical Garden. I've been talking about this spot for months now, but yeah, I need to get down there during the day, maybe in the morning before it heats up, and explore because it just looks beautiful. Yeah, this is a big one that I want to do. Best urban oasis of Asia. Yeah, so this is the Green Lung, and it's just this beautiful public park that you have in Bangkok. Apparently, you can rent bikes. I've gone over this one before, so I'm going to just kind of move on quickly from here. But definitely, I'll be recording a video down there because it's looks very peaceful and very quiet compared to the hustle and bustle of the city. Here we go. So this is the next thing I want to check out. This is a snake farm. They do education, and based on what I read in the reviews, it's the reptiles are very, very well taken care of and looked after. I'll do some additional research to confirm that. I just want to make sure if I'm going to anything involving animals that it's done in an ethical manner because that's just really important to me. But yeah, it's a place where they educate people on reptiles and snakes, and I think it looks really cool. It'll be really. Oh, one sec. I think it looks really cool, and it's something that's really unique too to Southeast Asia because we have like zoos and reptiles and stuff in North America, but certainly you get different, many different varieties here in this part of the world compared to what I'm used to, and yeah, it's just something I'm really looking forward to. These two are really high up there. These are two of the probably the most important things I want to see in my remaining 3 weeks here. Um, I think I haven't been to the Jim Thompson House, so that's probably number 3, the Jim Thompson House Museum. It sounds crazy because I've stayed around here a bunch of times, but yeah, it's definitely appealing and ton of history here. I recently spoke to somebody from Japan, and they were telling me they came here for just a couple of days, and they made it over here, and they really enjoyed it. It's supposed to be gorgeous, and based on these pictures, yeah, I mean, it looks really, really beautiful, traditional old style house. It's mind blowing too. They preserved it because it's right next to, or basically in downtown. Uh, you know, really close to the central business district. Like this is huge, especially for that area. So that's number 3. What would be number 4? I wouldn't mind going back to Benji Park. I've been there a couple of times, and to Lumpini Park as well. Because in Lumpini, in Benji I've been there in the past, but never really explored the whole park. And I did that more recently, but both are beautiful, and especially the monitor lizards at Lumpini. It's just such a quirky kind of a thing to check out and see. As you can tell, I'm a fan of the different interesting kinds of reptiles. I'll of course make trips back to Mahanak, market to pick up some durian and some mangosteen. What else do I want to do? There's something I've been meaning to do, as I haven't really done much as far as getting on a boat in the river. So I've done that in the canals. Like there's a canal boat you can take through here. I've taken it from the pier out here in Bangkok, and then taken it all the way to Siam, like into the central area here. Yeah, you disembark right near the Bayok Sky Tower, Raja Prarap Station. Um, but let's see. But yeah, doing like some kind of like I don't know if you call it a cruise, really. I guess you would call it a mini cruise on the river would be a lot of fun. So I think I'm going to try to fit one of those in as well. And I'm not too far from the pier. There's a pier across from Icon Siam, and you can of course cross, to Icon Siam, but you can also depart from that pier and go like up and down the Chao Phraya. Also, feel free to chime in with any questions you guys have. We got a few viewers. And drink some of this electrolyte drink. Oh, great to see you, Daniel F. Hi, how do you deal with your passport book as it gets full? I'm going to assume you're an American, but this is probably a similar process for any country. You probably want to reach out to your embassy or your consulate and ask about getting a new book. And then the second part is when you order a new book, and this is something I'm going to have to do. I'm glad you're Canadian. So it's probably somewhat similar. Of course, I'm not from Canada, so I can't speak to the way they do things. But when you go to renew it, then you can select. There's a box when you go to do the renewal for a big book. They do this for the U.S. I have to imagine Canada is probably similar. Many more Canadians have a passport than Americans, so it's very popular for Canadians to have a passport. But you'll want to select that checkbox on the form if the form is the same, asking for a bigger book. But yeah, before it gets totally full, I would try to get a new one, just because you don't want to have a full one and then be potentially having to go back to Canada. I'm not really sure what happens when you get a full passport book. That would be interesting, actually. What happens if my passport book gets full? Yeah, okay. So you will reach a point, from what I'm reading here on Quora, where the passport, basically it's full and you may be denied entry because they can't put a stamp in there, right? So that's definitely a risk, and it's good that you're thinking about that in advance. But yeah, I'm going to elect to get the bigger book when I renew my American passport this fall, because it doesn't cost any extra, and I'm getting close to full on mine too. Like I'm down to like maybe 5 or 6 sides. I need to double check, but I don't have that many, especially when you get some visas that are one big page. Like the visa for Cambodia takes up an entire page, at least when I was there 5 years ago. So definitely better to be proactive there. Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that, because I'm curious how many sides I have left. I'm not worried about it, just because I'm not going to too many more countries this year. I'll be going to Vietnam next, and yeah, probably the Philippines after that. But yeah, I think it's definitely, if you're traveling in a region like Southeast Asia, it's easy to rack up a bunch of stamps. I've heard the Caribbean is the same way. I didn't experience that in Europe, because when I went to Europe, I landed in Spain. No, I landed in Portugal. I got stamped into Portugal. I went to Spain, but because I didn't fly, the visa wasn't ever checked. So I know they're part of the EU, and it's irrelevant. But if you're somebody that's interested in getting some interesting stamps, then definitely Southeast Asia and the Caribbean seem to be two of the places where you can get quite a few interesting ones. I had a lot of fun showing people back home some of my stamps because it's just something so different, right? I mean, each country has their own stamp, and it represents different things that they want to represent. And I don't have a stamp from Peru, so when I went to Peru, they suspended doing stamps because of COVID, and you you just have like a digital, they call it a digital record. So I guess they have a digital record that I was in Peru, and authorized to be there for a while. And I was hoping to get one because I figured that one would be cool. I did get one from Colombia. Did get one from Morocco. I don't think did get one from Finland. So I was in Finland last summer, and on the way here to Thailand, I lucked out. I wish I would have booked a little bit more time in there so I could have made it down to Estonia, because it's really close. You can take a ferry from Helsinki to Tallinn in just a few hours. So if I go fly back through Finland at some point, then I'll take a short little trip down to Tallinn, Estonia. Tallinn is supposed to be a really popular city for digital nomads. What else? What else? What else to do in Bangkok? I wanted to go to the plane graveyard in Bangkok, but they've closed that off. I should have done it last time. There's so many things I should have done last time that are impossible to do now. I'll probably make it back to Chinatown at some point. It's not that far from Mahanak, so I could just walk down there. I do want to do at least one more day trip out to Thonburi. I was out there a few nights ago. I went out there and had sushi at the Mall Life Store, Tapra, at Sushi Row, conveyor belt sushi. Whole lot of fun. Definitely recommend it if you come here to Thailand. It's a popular Japanese chain, and they've opened up a bunch of locations throughout Bangkok, and they're brand new. Some of the locations, maybe most of them, are brand new, and I've enjoyed it a lot. Daniel F., I plan to go to Bogota soon. Thank you so much for the info. Yeah, absolutely. I hope you enjoy Bogota. It's a lot of fun. It's really an underrated city. There's I like the weather. It reminds me a lot of the Pacific Northwest, like Seattle, or if you're Canadian, you're familiar with the city called Vancouver on the west coast of Canada. And it has that kind of rainy, overcast weather. But on the sunny days, it's super bright. It's super, super sunny. Of course, you're at a high altitude there. We can pull that up. We come back to Bangkok. And you're really high up, and so the sun really can make you feel like you're cooking. The architecture is gorgeous. Like, it really shocked me. I wasn't expecting this when I went to Bogota, because anytime Colombia comes up in the U.S., people are always, of course, talking about, unfortunately, Pablo Escobar and all that stuff. But Colombia has come a long way since then, and you see that in cities like Bogota that are super modern, and like, I mean, this almost has like a little bit of the Blade Runner vibe. I've got a video, I've recorded it, but I need to actually sit down and edit it, talking about Bangkok being kind of a Blade Runner type of vibe. And you have that to some extent in Bogota with just the futuristic architecture, and I liked it a lot. I think you're going to have a great time. And the mountains are this beautiful backdrop. It's a cool city. Hey, Christopher, welcome to the stream. Daniel is planning on heading down to Bogota soon, and it's been just really a lot of fun We talked a bit about Bogota on the last stream. I talked a lot about Bogota with Christopher, and it's just such a beautiful city in the mountains. I liked it a lot, and it's I wasn't expecting it to to blow me out of the water like that, but yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. When are you leaving again? I'm considering a trip back to Manila in July. That's a great question, Christopher. So I'm flying out. I'll pull up Da Nang. I'm pulling. I'm, I'm flying out to Da Nang 3 weeks from today. So I've got my foot. My foot. Bleh, I need to drink some water. I'm tripping over myself a bit here. So I'm flying out to Da Nang from Bangkok 3 weeks from today, and I'm looking forward to it. I've got a 3 month visa, so I'm technically good in Vietnam until October 5th. So I imagine I'll like Vietnam a lot, and I'll stay for the duration for 3 months. So I'm looking at going to the Philippines probably in October. As I say, I'm really missing the Philippines, and so I say maybe I'll be in Vietnam for a month. But I really do think I'm going to enjoy Vietnam. I've been watching a ton of videos on it the last week, trying to prepare, trying to learn as much as I can learn about people's experiences and what they liked and what they didn't like, what I should be aware of, um, popular activities to do. I've heard Da Nang is fairly chill. It's not going to be as wild or exciting as cities like Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City to the north and south, respectively. But that sounds good for me. I need a break from Bangkok. I know that some may feel like Bangkok is very, very developed, and I would agree with that sentiment. But it definitely is a really big city with big city vibes, and you can get tired after a while. I feel like I can get tired after a while. Some people may feel different. I know the people that have lived in Bangkok for 10 or more years that they never get worn out. They enjoy it a lot. But for me, sometimes it just the crowds and the sheer volume of the city. It's just such a massive city. You, I can feel like I need a little bit of a break from it. So I'm going to Da Nang for a few months. I imagine it'll be great for decompressing. I've heard it's much more laid back and much more chill than the big cities in Vietnam. And then I'll probably go to one of the big cities in Vietnam. If I don't yet have my new passport by that point, then I'll probably go to one of those for the final month in Vietnam and get that done, because I've heard it's a pain to transfer your visa in the Philippines. Yeah, Bogota sounded awesome, Christopher, based on what you were saying, and I think Daniel's going to enjoy it a lot. It's got an edge. Can't deny that. Bogota definitely has an edge. It's one of the edgier cities that I've been in. I never had any seriously bad stuff happen to me. I did have kind of a punk rocker looking guy try to hassle me to buy something. So if somebody tries to put something in your hand or get you to buy it, take something for free, that's a type of a petty scam that they'll do, and then they'll ask you for money. They'll try to put like a wristband on your wrist. So be aware of that. I just shake my hand no. Anybody tries to give me anything, unless it's a friend of mine there, then I don't know them, and I'm not gonna fall for that. But yeah, so back to Da Nang. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to it a lot. I think it's going to be a really nice place to um, spend time, and then have a little bit of a break from the big city. It's apparently there's limited activities. Some people call it boring. This is similar. I think a similar phenomena to Chiang Mai. So a lot of people do call Chiang Mai, one of my favorite cities, boring, and I would agree with that about Chiang Mai, and I love it. I mean, to me, boring is perfect for day-to-day living. Do I like exciting cities, like wild, crazy cities like Bangkok? Yeah, I do, but it's for a limited duration. I enjoy it in bursts. I find that I enjoy it the most when I'm spending like a week there. Sometimes when I'm there for longer than a week, it just, I don't know, you just have to be more, you can't really zone out as much. Like here in Bangkok, when I zone out, I'll bump my head on something, or I'll narrowly avoid, stepping in the way of a scooter, or, um, maybe I'll drop something, or, uh, if I don't know, there's just, like if, well, tonight, actually, I was out walking in my neighborhood in Saton, and all of a sudden a rainstorm came in, and so I was crowded with a bunch of other people into 7-Eleven while the rain passed over. Um, and some people might not like that. I don't mind that so much, but there's just, I don't know, it's more people than what I'm used to being around. So that's why cities like Penang are so appealing to me for day-to-day life, because I feel like I'm not as likely to get stuck in a traffic jam. I'm not as likely to get stuck, uh, or get lost, or, um, I don't know, like, it's just the smaller cities. I feel like they're a little bit easier to navigate. You don't have this public transportation, but um, you don't have so many different arteries and small streets and alleyways, and it's taken me some time just to learn my neighborhood. It's so I would say at least a month to fully learn my way around the neighborhood, and like how to go to where I need to go efficiently. I think that's going to be less of an issue in Da Nang, because if it's anything like Chiang Mai, you've got a lot of self-serving, I don't know if self-serving is a word, self-sufficient neighborhoods. So you've got neighborhoods where you've got everything you need. And I feel like sometimes that's less the case in Bangkok, because even though my neighborhood has what I need, there's some other things that are just harder to find, and I need to go across the city to get them. For some reason in Chiang Mai, maybe it was just getting across the city was a lot faster, right? Being in a city of 1 to 2 million people, you're not trying to cross a metropolis of 15 million people where there's traffic and congestion, and it's obviously more costly to travel in a big city compared to a smaller city, um, overall, because you're just, if you're, the more trips you need to make, and I'm not going to get a car here, right? I'm not going to get a motorbike here. So, and not in Vietnam either. But yeah, Christopher says, no to our papaya in Colombia. Yeah, I agree. Don't show off your valuables, dress down. You don't need to show off. One of the things, because I've talked to some people online who got robbed in Colombia, and I asked them, do you dress up? Like, are you dressed nicely? Oh, well, I'm just wearing a t-shirt. It's like, no, like people can tell when you've got, and that's why sometimes I get, some crap for looking a bit haggard. But part of the reason I dress down is that I don't want to look like a high status individual anywhere I go. There's plenty of American neighborhoods where I don't want to stand out. I don't want to be driving a fancy car. I don't want to be having some a high-end Apple product visible, right? I don't want to be a magnet for people who are of ill repute, people who are looking to take advantage. And so that goes for any country, but in Colombia, the difference is it can actually be a safety issue. So some countries, you'll just get your stuff stolen, no big deal. In Colombia, some of the theft can be very, very dangerous. There's been a number of stories on the news about it, that people are having some really tragic and extreme circumstances there. Like I said, I didn't have issues there, but I dressed down. I don't have an Apple Watch. I have a cheap iPhone. Some people told me I look Colombian, so that might be part of it too. But I was not trying to stand out at all. I didn't show a bunch of money off. Yeah, I mean, I tried to pay by card when I could, so that reduced the amount I needed to hit the ATM. But yeah, people are super friendly down there. I mean, people are very, very friendly in Colombia. I visited several different skate parks in the city, which was a ton of fun. I'm not a skater, but I like to watch, and so much fun to watch these really talented young people have these really awesome displays, right? Of like expertise. You could tell they practiced a lot. Uh, yeah, I'm definitely a fan of checking out some of those skate parks in Colombia. Medellin, more specifically. I didn't really see them in Bogota. I don't know if it was just where I was staying, but they're very popular in Medellin. It was also shocking to me how different. And why don't I pull up Medellin here? It was also shocking to me how different Medellin and Bogota are. So they don't look like that far apart by, we'll see how far they are. Like, so it's like an 8 hour trip. That doesn't seem that bad, but they're very, very different cities. Medellin has like a big public rail transit system. Although I didn't take it because I was warned about it. I should have. It's something I regret not doing, is not taking that public transit more. I walked a lot in Medellin because the weather is perfect. The neighborhoods are gorgeous. It's perfect weather to go walking around. But I would be mindful just about what about carrying valuables at nighttime. And some of this stuff I'm talking about, not from personal experience, but through anecdotes I've read online. And then I've also had local friends in Colombia warn me as well. So not speaking from my own experience, but whatever I did, part of it was luck, but I managed to get through without anything extreme. But yeah, very, very interesting country. I think it's the most biodiverse country in the world. There's so much variety there. Um, I hope to go back at some point. Eventually, like, and I don't know if I would cap off a trip, but I want to do something like maybe start in Cancun and work my way down through Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. So I've heard of people doing that in like, I don't know, like a month. I'd maybe want to stretch it to 2 months just because I like to go a little bit more slowly. But certainly that's an interesting one I'd like to do. I've been to Cancun several times, but I haven't been south of there. So in Central America, I've been to South America. So that would be really cool. Like maybe take a bus down to Belize and then go from there. I'd want to be careful because, of course, there are some really challenged areas in Central America, and it's not an extreme priority for me right now because there's some other stuff that's higher priority for me, if I'm just being honest. But eventually it's going to happen. Eventually it will happen. And yeah, finish, after Panama, finish in like Medellin or something, go back and check out some of the neighborhoods I lived in before, visit some of the places and people I met, because the people are so friendly and hospitable. But yeah, that's on the radar eventually. But yeah, thank you for calling that out, Daniel. Very, very cool to talk about Colombia. Daniel F. Sounds like a good adventure. Thank you so much, Daniel. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, like, it's not that far from the United States, but it's still quite different down there. I was surprised at how different it was. Honestly, like, surprised at both how different it was and how similar it was. I wasn't expecting the similarities, and I wasn't expecting the differences. How do you deal with countries with proof of onward flight? That's a great question. So there's a couple of things I'll mention here. Some people book an onward flight, a throwaway ticket. I've never used that method, but a lot of people swear by it. They pay $10 or $20 equivalent, for Canadian dollars, maybe $30 equivalent. It varies by website. And for whatever reason, like, it shows up in the system. I don't know exactly how it works. And people will show that to the airline and basically say, hey, look, I've got an onward flight. So that way, because I think what happens is, if for whatever reason you're abandoned in whatever country, or you run out of money, or whatever happens, then the airline can be partially liable for not making sure you're capable of leaving. Like, they're getting you there, and I don't fully understand it. They have some level of responsibility to make sure that you leave on time. And I'm sure too, for the cases, that rule came up because people abused it, right? They'd fly into a country with no money, they'd run out of money, and then the country is trying to figure out, how do we repatriate them? How do we get them back to their home country? Who's going to pay for that? Who's going to be responsible for that bill? Because it's not cheap to buy a last minute ticket halfway around the world or to a different continent. And so part of how they avoid that situation of having a broke expat in limbo is that they require that. So this is the other thing. Now, I don't think this applies to Canadians, although your travel provider may have special, like you can pay extra for this. But what I do is I use Chase. So I'm a JP Morgan Chase customer, and I use their online portal, and I book a flight that has free 24-hour cancellation. And I do that at the airport. So if they ask me, if they don't ask me, which I didn't get asked coming here to Thailand, I didn't get asked on the way to Finland, and I didn't get asked on the way to Bangkok for an onward ticket. Now, I may have been just luck of the draw. Maybe they just pick random people to ask about an onward flight. So I didn't even get asked about it. Now, my plan was, if I did get asked, I would log into Chase on my cell phone, or if my cell phone was having issues, I'd pull out my laptop and access the Chase website and then book one of those flights out of the country with free 24-hour cancellation, show that to the flight attendant. I've never had to show customs that. It's always been the airline's responsibility for whatever reason. So I'll show that person at the airline check-in, hey, look, I've got this flight, and then go through. And then once I get through, once she prints out the ticket, I've got the ticket, I go through security, I go through customs, whatever else I need. Well, no, customs is on the way in. I go through security and I show my passport and all that. Then I cancel it. So I'm on my way to the next country, and I've got an indeterminate exit point. Because yeah, for me, if I don't like a place, I want to leave early. And if I really like a place, maybe I want to stay longer. So there's no reason in my mind I get it from their perspective. They're trying to reduce liability. They've got a lot of risk. From my perspective, I'd rather just get one of those 24-hour free cancellation flights. I think some websites will offer you that service separately, like, hey, the ticket's $300, but if you pay us $350, then you'll be able to alter the ticket for no charge. You'll be able to cancel the ticket at no charge. And so I would look into that. But like I said, it's random. I have had it. I can't remember where it was. I can't remember where it was, but I have had them ask me for an onward ticket, and I had to book it on the spot. That was kind of annoying, just because, you're like trying to get through. I think I had 2.5 hours to get through security and fly. And so that's plenty of time, but still you're just in a rush. You're like, okay, is it going to allow me to cancel? Because I don't want to book some $500 flight that I have to just throw away. Like, that's a huge waste. And I think you should, it depends on the country you're going to. One thing I've thought about, if I couldn't access a free 24-hour cancellation deal, which is guaranteed in the US, I can't speak for other countries, but any country originating from the US, and I think maybe also landing in the US, then there's that requirement that the flight is refundable within 24 hours of booking. So I wouldn't try it day before your flight or anything like that. But what was I talking about? I lost my train of thought. On proof of onward flight. The thing that I was thinking about is, like, what if if you couldn't book the 24-hour flight, then the flight, and then with 24-hour free cancellation, could you book a bus ticket, right? So, like, if I wanted to leave Vietnam because my visa is expiring, but for whatever reason I don't want to go to the Philippines, can I just book a bus ticket from Ho Chi Minh City to Phnom Penh? So that's something to think about, as well as, like, if the neighboring country is not too far away by bus, it's something worth considering. I will say I did not use the bus in Latin America. Things look deceptively like close, but the distances are super long. Like, when I was down in Peru, it's like a 17-hour bus ride from Lima to Cusco. from the coast to the mountains, and that's like an hour and a half flight. So it's such a short flight. It's like, okay, do I want to be sitting on a bus driving through really tall mountains and having to probably take a nap on that bus, or do I want to just fly and maybe take a nap and then I'm there? So that's kind of the counter argument to the bus. Some routes are just super expensive. Like there's certain routes that for whatever reason there's just a lockdown on them. They're costly relative to what they are, but you're paying for time, right? Like when you do the short flight instead of the bus ride, then you're saying, okay, do I want to spend an hour or two on this trip and $60, or do I want to save $30, but then I'm sitting on a bus, or $20, but then I'm sitting on a bus for like 12 to 14 hours. Like to me, it's worth it to pay the extra because I can make that money back, but I know that I'm just going to be really tired the day after, tired the day of, may not be in a great mood depending on how comfortable the bus ride is. But yeah, I think that could also come in handy if your fake onward ticket doesn't work, and if you don't have the free 24-hour cancellation policy I mentioned before. I'm hoping I don't get asked about it when I leave Vietnam to go to the Philippines. So my hope is to go to the Philippines and stay for a while. And I don't know. I'm just hoping to not have to think about it because um, I get it. They do have some homeless Americans in the Philippines that they are trying to prevent that circumstance from happening. It is very unfortunate. I'm not going to be one of those people, but you know, they're fair, right? I mean, they see it all, right? Whereas we as tourists, if we're on our best behavior, we tend to see a lot of good in the places that we go, and I don't think that's the same for the people that have to deal with us on the other end, the worst of us on the other end. But yeah, let's go back to Vietnam here. So yeah, I'll be in Da Nang, here in Da Nang, and I'll stay in Da Nang for a month, and I'll do like a day trip up here to Hue. Um, let's see how far it is, Da Nang. Oh, so it's longer than that. So it's a couple hours. I thought it would just be like an hour. Distances are definitely deceiving in Southeast Asia. But yeah, so I'll take uh, I'll take some kind of transportation up to Hawaii. Maybe I'll do it for a weekend. I've heard it's kind of hard to do like longer than a weekend. It gets a little bit small feeling compared to Da Nang. Maybe I'll go up there on a Friday, stay until Monday morning, and then come back down to Da Nang. And then I want to, of course, I want to visit Hoi An. And there's a famous shop that Anthony Bourdain apparently ate at. I don't know if this was with President Obama, but I'm going to look it up really quick. Let's see. Bon Mai Huang. Thank you so much, Daniel. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say. I just have had so much fun interacting with all of you guys and meeting different people and learning about their experiences and what their goals are and what brings them to this part of the world or that part of the world. Have you been to Colombia before, Daniel? Here we go. Bon. Here we go. So this is apparently the spot. So this is where President Obama and Andy Bourdain had that banh mi. Here we go. 11,600 reviews. So the spot's famous. I'm sure they get tons of business. Yeah, that's place is packed with workers. I mean, I see at least probably 8 people there helping to serve these hot and tasty sandwiches. And yeah, I can't wait. This looks excellent. I like the paper bags too. It's definitely eco-friendly, and it pairs well with the freshness of the ingredients. I think the whole thing is just a really uh, wild. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to Vietnam. It's uh, it's going to be wonderful and very different from anything I've experienced before. These spring rolls look super fresh. Look at all those carbs. Like the lanterns too. The presentation is beautiful. I've been really impressed by a lot of the presentation I've seen in pictures and videos of Vietnam. I think before I ever researched going to Vietnam, I expected, oh, it's going to be like Thailand and Cambodia, which I know is considered disrespectful for whatever reason. They're very different from one another. They're very, very different from one another. And it's taken me a long time to appreciate the differences, learn about the history, learn about the culture, and I'm super looking forward to it. People often ask me which one is the best. I think they're all awesome, different flavors of the same awesome experience that that draws so many people to Southeast Asia. Daniel says, no, I went to Mexico, Guadalajara for 6 months, first time to Colombia. Um, Excellent. Yeah, Guadalajara seems awesome. I have not been there myself. I've always wanted to go. I've only been to the super touristy parts of Mexico. So I've been to Cancun, of course, East Coast area, and then I've been to Tijuana, West Coast area, but I haven't been to Guadalajara or to Mexico City. But yeah, for Americans, the fact that you can get 6 months is so convenient. I don't know if they're still doing that. I've heard you have to push for it or ask for it, show proof of funds to get the 6 months. I've also heard it varies by airport in Mexico. But I think there's so many people going down there now that there is increased scrutiny on Americans looking to live in Mexico, which is kind of ironic. But yeah, it's. I think if you enjoyed Mexico, I think you'll like Colombia. I will say, like, the weather is cooler for whatever reason. I mean, I know Colombia gets very hot by the coast, but I didn't go there to the coastal areas. So I found the weather to be much cooler than Mexico East Coast. Um, Probably warmer or comparable to the West Coast, so like Baja California area. Mm, but yeah, this spot should be really cool. Um, Not trying to get political at all, by the way, with the reference to the president or anything like that. It to me, it's you know, it's just an interesting like part of history, and Vietnam seems to be quite full of history. But something I can maybe appreciate more in like the sense of living in the modern world as opposed to the more traditional world that people lived in for a very long time until the advent of the internet and all this technology that allows us to research awesome places like Vietnam. Daniel says, I wish the visas were better in Thailand. It's fairly complex. You know, I readily admit that in Thailand, the visa system is complex. Um, and, you know, it's definitely complex. I think that it pushes a lot of guys and gals over to the Philippines or to Mexico because they feel like it's just going to be easier for them to to just think about a long-term stay, to be able to be there for an indeterminate amount of time, which is why I'm going to the Philippines after Vietnam if everything goes to plan. Because in the Philippines, as an American, I can stay up to 3 years, and then I can leave for a day and then come right back. Thailand, that's not the case. The future becomes cloudier if I don't look at getting married to a local person, which I don't think it's practical to go to Thailand for a year and say I'm going to spend this year finding a significant other, because it could take you longer than that. So yeah, I think it's definitely something to think about. And it may change. The visas are starting to loosen or lighten up in some way, in the sense that we get 60 days on arrival, and then we can extend for 30 days. Um, I don't know. Yeah, like it used to be 30 days, and then you get 30 days if you extend. So yeah, I mean, it could be that there. I know there's a lot of interest in increasing tourism in Thailand right now. So in the future, things could change. I'm not certain about it. I do know the Philippines, though, is super appealing for that reason, and also the English. But people know if they go there, that it's like, hey, I can just stay here for indefinitely on tourist visas. If With the current rules, they may change. Some people have talked about how they may downshift it, where you need to leave the Philippines every 2 years as opposed to every 3 years. Uh, I'm not at that point. I don't see myself staying in the Philippines for 3 years. I'd like to spend maybe 6 months or so there before I go back to the US to start working again. And so that's kind of where I'm at, is just trying to plan out the rest of my time in Southeast Asia for this trip. Chris says, the US citizens get 60 days on arrival by default, or is it taking the time to file for the tourist visa worth the time? So it's changed. I can pull up, let's see here. How many days in Thailand? It's, I'm trying to find, I'm not finding a clear article about it, unfortunately, Chris. They were supposed to have changed it recently. I don't know if there's a certain date at which that goes into effect. They opened it up from like something like 50 or 60 countries. They moved it up to 90 countries, get 60 days on arrival. If you come for 60 days, if you plan to come for 60 days, you will be able to get 30 and an additional 30. And, so that's based on the way things were before. Now it should be you get 60 on arrival, and then get 30. You can get the longer tourist visa in advance. I think it's worth it to get in advance if you're planning to come for 3 months. And I don't know if they would just, when you stamp in, they just say, okay, here you got 3 months. But Sleeping Elephant says, yeah, I just need 60 days. Don't want to leave country. Yeah, 60 days. I mean, you'll be able to get that as an American. Like I've gotten 60 days on my last trip here to Thailand. And yeah, but like I said, I think it's worthwhile if you want 90 to file in advance, because that might save you a trip to immigration and having to just like wait there. It is possible they have some services that help expedite your trip to immigration, and those are at the building. Something to think about as well. Yeah, Danang will be great. I need to find a way to turn off the color adjuster. I'm in sleep mode, and I guess we could put it on driving mode. Huh. Most likely we'll be in Chiang Rai next month. Thanks for the info. Well, enjoy your time in Chiang Rai, Sleeping Elephant. Didn't make it up there. I don't know why I didn't. My time in Chiang Mai just flew by so quickly, but I definitely want to get up to Chiang Rai next time I come to Thailand. It's supposed to be really cool, small town vibes. One of my good friends here in Bangkok is actually from Chiang Rai, and she misses it a lot. And when she goes back, she gets to see a lot of her friends and family. And it's a really good time for her because it's home for her. I mean, I think Bangkok is home for her now, but she grew up there in Chiang Rai. Yeah, I think the small towns are really like where it's at in Thailand. My best experiences have been in the smaller, less traveled parts of Thailand because, in the more heavily touristed parts of Thailand, people like, they're on the job and they know that tourism really helps Thailand a lot. And so they want to be especially helpful and kind, but also people get worn out, right? They get worn out from dealing with tourists. They get worn out from just the velocity of work. I mean, if you're in Bangkok and you're working at a restaurant, often serving tons of people, unless it's a really high-end restaurant with fewer customers, then you're going to be uh, really, really busy. And so you do get a benefit in the smaller cities of having more chill vibes. I mean, Hat Yai blew my mind. I was so shocked by Hat Yai. I did not expect Hat Yai to be as awesome as it was. I was just looking for somewhere to get away from the burning season. And we can pull that up actually really quick. Let's see here. Yeah, so I spent a month down here. This was the month of March, and I didn't know what to expect. Nobody had ever told me about Hat Yai. We're near the border of Malaysia, so it's pretty far south, further south than it's one of the furthest south points you can go in Thailand. Not far at all from the border. Like if you go south, you're headed toward. Sorry, you're headed toward Langkawi, so really close to Malaysia. And I loved it. I mean, I came up here to Songkhla, which was beautiful. It's really a chill place, like out of the way, hardly any Western tourists. I would see maybe one or two Western tourists a day. Really, very few. It was almost all Malaysian tourists. And it was so interesting. And the English was great. Like I was expecting to not get as much English here because it's not like Bangkok, right? Big international city. But no, there's plenty of English in Hat Yai. So lots of cool, small, charming cities out there that are not as well known, or maybe don't get as much tourism as Bangkok or Chiang Mai or the islands or Phuket or islands like Phuket. And yeah, definitely a lot of cool variety in Thailand. Solo Transient says, "Hey Alex, I'll be in Da Nang on August 6th." Okay, great, Solo. So I should see you there. I land on July 8th, and I'm going to book a place. I lean toward. We'll pivot back to Da Nang really quick. I lean toward booking a place for a week in Da Nang, and then just walking around town until I find a building that I like, and booking a month from there. Because I've heard that there's a lot of construction in Da Nang, and my concern is if I book a place for a month and then, I don't find out that there's construction nearby until I get there, that could be kind of a headache-filled month, right? Being next to construction site. So I'm leaning toward getting a place for a week and using that week to just run around the city, check out all, see what all is out there, and then find a place and then book that place for a month, and then go from there. Da Nang downtown. But yeah, always happy to meet up. Solo Transient. just definitely reach out close to that date of arrival. And once you get into town and settle in, I'm, be happy to meet up and have some coffee or, just see what's up. It'll be interesting. It's my first time in Vietnam, first time in Da Nang. Like I said, I've heard it compared to Chiang Mai a lot, and I think it's going to be enjoyable. The Ferris wheel looks really cool with this dragon too. I love the dragon artwork throughout the city. They even have the dragon bridge, and apparently on the weekends it breathes fire. Let's see. So apparently this thing will breathe fire on the weekends. That is so intense. And looks like a lot of people gather around to check it out. It's beautiful. I'm looking forward to it a lot. It'll be interesting too to talk to friends in the United States that are from Vietnam or their parents are from Vietnam, because it's always interesting to me to talk to Asian American friends about their home countries, because they have a different perspective on a lot of these places than me as a tourist. I'm just there enjoying the town, having a good time. But for a lot of people, it represents tragedy and triumph, and some of both. So yeah, super interested to check out Da Nang. I think it's going to be a really chill city, and I think it's going to surprise. Well, I don't think it's going to surprise me at this point because I'm more well traveled, but it's going to feel very comfortable like Chiang Mai, I think. That's also Solar Transient says that's also my plan. Spend a week in a hotel and then find an apartment. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea, Solar Transient. And I'm looking as well. Like, I'll pull the map back up. I'm looking a little bit further away. So I was initially looking over here in the Mai An area, Mon Tai area, because these are super popular among Western tourists or foreign tourists. But I've also heard there's a lot more construction going on through here. There's a lot more population density. Of course, you've got a lot of people coming to the beach. So I've heard it's not always the quietest. So I am looking more in the mainland kind of area here, not on the peninsula, because I've heard it's more chill. It's more local. Not as many tourists in this part of the city, and hopefully less construction, less building going on, just so I can have a chill place to rest and recuperate after exploring the city. What made you pick Da Nang Solo Transient? I'm just curious. I'm always like wondering what about the place kind of specifically appealed to you. Uh, I think my intrigue about Vietnam came from learning about my grandfather serving in the military, and then growing up and having Vietnamese American friends, and learning about a little bit about it from them, but not in tons of detail, but maybe a little bit about the culture. And then also my mom, when she worked as an accountant, she had a coworker whose family was from Vietnam, and so I've had glimpses and pieces. And then in college, I'd always take my girlfriend at the time, out to this Vietnamese restaurant in Nashville called Miss Saigon, and we'd go there a lot, like once a week. We'd go and have pho, and yeah. Also, there's some other spots in Nashville too that have really good pho. But yeah, so I've tried the food a lot, the Southern food especially, and I've had different connections in my life come from Vietnam. So that was kind of the journey there. And then I've been meaning to go there for years. I wanted to on my last trip, but the borders closed down and it was really difficult to get around in Southeast Asia. But now the window has opened. I'm here in Thailand. I've got my flight booked. I've got my visa. I just need to pick a place to crash for a week and then go find my apartment. And I think I'll settle in really comfortably after I find that place. I'll stay for a month and I won't be thinking about where I'm going to spend time. That's something that's been maybe more challenging on this trip, as I realized, wow, if you travel for a long period of time, like this trip to Thailand has been a year, you might spend more time than you are accustomed to in finding a new place to live. So back in the US, you get a lease for a year, you stay in the same place for a year, you're not worried about where you're going to live for the year. Here, if I'm going from city to city, I may only stay in the city, a certain city or place for a month, and then I'm going on to the next one. So that does tend to take more time than I realized. Sorting out like the neighborhoods, what I like about certain neighborhoods, what I don't like, what I'm seeking, what I'm not seeking, the size of the cities that I like. There's just so much to think about there. Solo Transient says, well, I want a chill vibe, not much of a city guy. I live in suburban California, so I wanted to stay in Da Nang. Da Nang reminds me of Huntington Beach and OC. What a small world. Yeah, I get what you mean. It's, I think too, like in Vietnam, I've heard the cities are a lot to adjust to. Like, you don't necessarily, it's not as advanced development wise. Vietnam's an awesome country, but you don't have the BTS system in Ho Chi Minh City or Hanoi, which is an MRT system. Those two systems make it very easy to get around Bangkok. So it can be a little bit, I think, rough around the edges. And I think that adds to it, where I've heard like it's not exactly easy to walk around Ho Chi Minh City or Hanoi, which in California, it's very easy to walk around. I found California to be very pedestrian friendly throughout the state. Whether you're in Huntington Beach or you're in, you're in Morro Bay, an interesting town that I like to visit. You're in Santa Cruz, wherever you are, like there's solid urban development where you can just go out for a walk. And there's parts of Vietnam where that's just not as doable. I've heard that in some cities, people do ride on the sidewalks, and you have to be cautious about that. This isn't to disparage anybody. This isn't to put anybody down, but it's a valid thing to want, right? Is like, hey, I want a chill vibe. And if I go to a super, super densely populated city, regardless of where that city is, it's not going to be a chill vibe. Like New York City is not chill. I like New York. I think it's an interesting place, but it's a very fast-paced vibe. And if you want to chill out, have an experience more in line with what you're used to, then yeah, I think that's a great plan. Solo Transient. Thank you for that great comment. Hey, Tony, good to see you. How are you doing today, Tony? We're just talking about Da Nang. Solo Transient is headed to Da Nang in about 6 weeks, and really looking forward to seeing how his experience goes and his likes and dislikes. And I'm glad to hear that, Tony. I'm glad you're doing good. It's it's summer back in the States and in Canada. A really nice time of year. I'm sure the weather is gorgeous and very comfortable. And I miss that because it has been hot. It has been super hot here in Thailand this week, especially today. Today it rained a lot. It was very hot and humid, but that's to be expected in the tropics. It's been an adjustment for me. It's been very confusing for me because the weather hasn't really changed that much over the last year. And it reminds me of the first time I lived in California for a year. And I was like, man, like I'm used to Tennessee where we have 4 seasons. They're very distinct and different from one another. You have summer, fall, winter, spring. And here the weather is very similar year round. So I found it to cause me to lose track of time a bit because you're like, wow, it's been a month, but it's not that much different. Tony says, sounds like Thailand is really a place for you. Thailand is definitely up there for me. To me, if I don't find anywhere else I want to live, Thailand is very easy default slot. You've had, Western people living here for decades. You have a lot of Asian expats living here as well. Second largest population of Japanese abroad after Los Angeles. So Bangkok, that is, has I think 100,000 Japanese people. So it's just so easy. I mean, it's very comfortable to live in Thailand. The people are very polite. Most of the people are very polite. The food is delicious. The healthcare is solid. The expenses are reasonable. I feel like there's great value for money here. But the one barrier is learning Thai. I think if I put more effort into learning Thai and learn more Thai, it would really open up a lot for me here. Um, so that's why I'm checking out some other places. But yeah, it's Thailand doesn't have as many like there's some, but I feel like they have some mountainous areas, but the English is not there. And that's why I'm curious about the mountainous parts of the Philippines because you get cooler weather, like cities like Baguio, you get cooler weather, but you also get English. And that's something that if I was learning Thai at 20, it'd be much easier than now in my 30s, right? So that's something that's appealing to me about other places is the hot weather, it wears on me to some degree. It's tolerable, like I can deal with it, but psychologically, sometimes you just want to be outside and for it to not be super hot. And you don't really have that option as much, not in Bangkok anyway. It just is what it is. I love a lot of things about Bangkok, but um, the heat can be like overbearing at times. We've had a heat dome here in Alabama above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, so probably about the same. Yeah, I know what you're going through, Isaac, that hot, sticky southern summer where it just feels like feels like a sauna outside. I mean, when I get off the BTS here, my glasses will fog up and I know where I'm at because the BTS, you've got the aircon running, it cools and dries the air. And so then when you get off, then yeah, my glasses fog up anyway. Tony says, I don't do well with bad heat. That's why my fire plan will be in a highland area with a more moderate climate. That's a great point, Tony. Like, for me, it may come down to rotation. I may like set up to do a rotation where I look at Southeast Asia, specifically outside of the mountainous areas where you have hotter weather most of the year from say November until like February and catch the high season, the peak, comfortable weather, and then check out some other places the rest of the year because I don't know, it just takes something out of you. Like I sweat plenty, but like it just coming back all the time, like covered in sweat and having to immediately change clothes, having to shower several times a day. It tends to kind of dry my skin out. And that's where there's a lot of appeal of places like, Cusco or other highland places like you mentioned. I think that's a great plan, Tony, that you're looking at more of a more moderate climate. And that could be in my future as well, because, that was part of what I was trying to figure out on this test run is can I handle year round extraordinary heat? And physically I can, but to me, it's become more of a psychological thing. Like physically, I just sweat a lot. I drink plenty of water. But there are days where I find myself stepping into 7-Eleven every few blocks. And I need to cool off and I'm drinking water and then I'm worried, did I drink enough water? When's the last time I drank water? And if I carry water with me, it's going to warm up really fast. So I like cool water, even though it's technically not the most biologically efficient. I like having some ice cold water to cool off. And so then now I'm drinking, it's a paranoia thing, but I'm getting exposed to the microplastics. Then I'm having to throw away this single-use water bottle. And it just, I don't know, it's complex. It's more complex than some other places I've lived that the temperature is milder. And so I'm not as worried about like getting dizzy from the heat, which has happened to me in Bangkok. Like it happened a few months ago. I had to go and sit down in a 7-Eleven for a good 15 minutes chugging Gatorade because I just wasn't thinking about hydration because in California, where I lived before I came to Thailand, it's just not something you have to think about as much. Tony asks, have you ever watched Big World Cinema's channel? He's a Brit living in the Philippines. I'll take a look at it. That name sounds familiar, but I'll give him a watch. I have been watching this guy Marshall Butters vlog. I don't know if anybody else has watched him. He's got 37,000 subs. But some of his stuff, like in Pagadian, was interesting. He's going to some parts of Mindanao that I'm kind of cautious or concerned about going, but he's willing to check it out. So I think it's interesting for sure. Hey, Michael. Michael Johnson says, hello, buddy, from the Philippines. Good to see you, Michael. I hope you're doing well this evening. It's getting late there in the Philippines. I guess it's past midnight, but it's nice part of the day when it cools off and you can enjoy the outdoors and have some ice cold Red Horse or a nice mixed beverage. Because I don't know, to me, there's just something about having that kind of warm glow and the day's cooled off. You've gotten what you needed to get done, and you just want to chill out. Tony says, yes, I respond to heat like you. It also drains my energy, makes me sleepy and cranky, can't focus mentally, etc. Yeah, Tony, and sometimes I just don't want to be inside. Sometimes for me, I want to just get outside, and being outside the US is contributes to that, right? So in the US, in the West in general, I think it's the same for a lot of people in the UK or Australia, Canada, Western democracies in general. We spend a lot of time indoors. I've heard it called the box life, and I would agree with that sentiment. I live in the box, my house, I get in the box, my car, to go to the box, my office. After work, I go to the box, the grocery store. And so you're spending all your time inside. And for me, I like being outside. I like having fresh air. I like feeling the nice cool breeze. So sometimes it is against my nature to not go out much, and especially in Southeast Asia. But the converse of that is, okay, now I've got to address the heat. So that's what's appealing to me about living in the mountains, is that, you definitely get a drop in temperature, ideally of about 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Not sure what it would be in Celsius, but that's what I'm hoping for by looking at the mountains. Michael says, I sleep during the hot part of the day and am up at night. That's how I found works best for me. That's not a bad idea, Michael. And actually, that's what I did today. That's what it's been switching to for me. And part of it is exacerbated by not working out. I haven't been exercising, aside from my really long walks, but I haven't been lifting weights the last, I'd say, month or so, just because of scheduling and timing and moving around. And I'm moving toward where I'm sleeping from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., which is not good. But it happens because of the heat. So because this has happened to me on multiple trips to Thailand, and I looked it up. Why is it that I can't sleep at night? And they're saying it's because of the heat that people end up, it throws off their sleep schedule. So I get really bad insomnia here if I'm not working out. I do need to do some more body weight exercises. But the challenge with that, Michael, is that if I am awake during the hottest part of the day, then I'm not really doing much, right? You don't really want to go out. You don't really want to do anything. So you're just kind of sitting there anyway. So I think you've got it down pat, where you sleep through the hottest part of the day where you don't really want to do anything. And you're awake at night when you can go out and enjoy yourself, or you can, be outside in your porch and just, enjoy the fresh air without the sun beating down. And because the sun, it can just be oppressive in Southeast Asia for sure. It's just so hot and bright that I take it for granted, right? Because coming from the US, especially if you're from a place with winters, or Canada, where most of the entire country deals with winter, then you're like, I just want some sun. But then you get the sun because you go to somewhere else on vacation, and you're like, ah, I just miss the overcast, you know, less or more chill kind of weather. Like here, I'm always having to carry sunglasses, where in the US, depending on where I'm at, I don't have to worry about sunglasses. Um, so that's definitely something to think about. Tony says, man, I struggle with insomnia and poor sleeping patterns too. It's tough, Tony. Like, exercise is one thing that's helped me a lot to sleep better, but it is a trade-off. Scheduling it, making sure that you're hydrated for it, making sure that you've got maybe something light on your stomach, making sure you're stretched and warmed up. I've definitely found as I get a little bit older, I need to stretch and warm up more, and take like not just kind of go in there and go all out like when I was younger. But even then, even with working out, my insomnia can still be an issue. Um, it's something that's definitely I've noticed more of as I've gotten older. And some of it is stress, to be fair, Tony. Like, some of it I found back home was stress related, where I'd stay up thinking about my job and what I needed to be doing tomorrow, and drinking coffee to like be more energetic during the day. So that was some of it too. So in some ways, I do sleep better over here, and other ways I don't sleep as well. I would say overall it's better, but it's definitely not perfect. And one thing that has helped me is if I still haven't slept by morning, like this morning, I didn't get to sleep until 8 a.m. Then I'll ruin. Then I'll run the air conditioning, and for whatever reason, I'm so tired, and the air conditioning is overriding the heat outside, and that helps me to sleep. But even then, sleeping during the day for whatever reason, maybe because I'm not fully adapted or adjusted to it, but I do wake up feeling kind of groggy in the afternoon. It does kind of throw me off to be getting up and going outside when the sun's going down. I think it's to the individual. I think everybody's body and brain is different. And I benefit a lot from a lot of exposure to the sun. I think just when your ancestors come from sunny places like Japan or India, you can become vitamin D deficient more easily. So that's something that's also on my mind. Tony says, yes, my bad anxiety about losing my job keeps me up. I'm sorry to hear that, Tony. I definitely know what that feeling is. I felt that for several months last year. And it's an awful feeling because you just don't know, like you don't have that certainty, right? You just don't have that certainty. And like humans like some degree of uncertainty. I think that's part of why we travel. We like to go around the world and see these different places and have these adventures. But we also want some degree of certainty. We want like some idea that the future is going in the direction we want. And when we have a negative experience or we have some stress, like, related to that unpredictable aspect, then it feels like we're almost like we're like getting pushed backwards or something. Like we're moving away from our goals rather than toward them. And part of me has felt that way about spending this year over here. I'm like, what if I could just get some other job doing something and I would just save more money? But it's like, I've got to balance thinking about the future with like relaxing for today. But I think it is part of the human condition, anxiety. Like no matter who it is, I've always, like, everybody I can think of, no matter how successful or how accomplished, still has that sense of like worrying about whether they're going to succeed or not. Yes, my job is actually pretty secure, but the anxiety and rumination can take over your mind and convince you that a catastrophe is around the corner. Yeah, I definitely can appreciate that perspective, Tony. I think that's unfortunately super common, like that a lot of us do struggle with, is like we're worried about what could go wrong. And I've had that thought before I came to Thailand for a year. I'm like, okay, I've gone for a month or two, but like, who knows what can happen over the course of a year? I mean, I don't speak Thai. I don't know all the places I'll be going. I don't know all the people I'll be meeting. But back home, the anxiety seems to be worse because it's like, it's almost existential to some degree. Like for me anyway, I worry about what's going to go wrong. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm wasting all this time worrying. And then it's like, okay, why am I wasting time? And then, do I, appreciate that I have time? And like, yeah, I can get in that circular kind of reasoning where I'm worried about one thing and then that makes me worry about another thing. And then I ruminate on what I could have done differently to avoid the situation entirely. And, yeah, it's tough. Tony says, you have the soul of an older, experienced, wise man, Alex. You are way ahead of the game in this respect. Well, that's really kind of you to say, Tony. I really appreciate that. That's really very kind. And I'm very fortunate to be in touch with people like you who have a lot of insight to share, a lot of wisdom to share. I have some other friends as well that are wiser and more experienced than myself. And I just feel so grateful to have those people in my life that that can really help me to understand that I'm not alone in these struggles. And some of these struggles are like perennial and like lifelong, and things that we have to overcome for sure. Like, and also accept meditation is interesting to me. I sometimes think I should have spent more time meditating, being here in Thailand. But I find, sometimes just being in the culture naturally causes me to be able to enter a more reflective state. But sometimes if you're prone to rumination or anxiety like we are, then that can be, how do you explain it? Sometimes I can be caught up in overthinking and I lose my bias toward taking action. Like the last month, I've had some other stuff I needed to work on, but I'm like, oh, you could have put out more vlogs the last month. And it's like, but I was concerned about getting caught up on my taxes, which that's almost done. That should be done this week. And I'll have a nice refund that will help me to pay bills for a while longer. And yeah. Tony says, I recall the first video of yours that I found. You were in Cusco talking about certain places to go that are introvert friendly. Thank you, Tony. Yeah, that I should do some more videos on that topic, actually, because I think, one, that got a fair amount of interest, and two, I think there's a lot of solo travelers out there that may not realize that they're introverts, and introvert travelers out there that may not really think about things through the lens of solo travel, because people are always asking me, why don't you go like with a group? Why don't you, travel with friends? And I found that I just enjoy my own company so much. And it's a big ask to ask people, hey, why don't you get a passport and go to another country? Like, I was shocked. One of my buddies from high school, he's actually going to be coming to Thailand in about, I'd say a few months. He's going to be coming here with his wife and some of his friends. And it just shocked me, not because I didn't think that I just didn't realize they would be interested in it. Right. I know that I've had a lot of interesting stories to share with them. But to me, the travel just seems like something like, hey, what have you been up to lately? Hey, this is what I'm doing. What about you? It's interesting, but I've learned to not expect other people to be as interested in it. So that's where solo travel is awesome, because I'm going wherever I want, whenever I want, for however long I want. I'm doing whatever I want the whole time I'm there. And I don't really have to think as much. For me, I just figure out, okay, what are the neighborhoods that are unsafe? What are the neighborhoods that are safe? And then I'm going to just go to the neighborhoods that are safe and wander around and just see how people live here, see how people operate, how they do things. Some of my favorite neighborhoods in Cusco were far away from the city center, like maybe not far, but like a few miles away from the city center. And I would just walk around them and like look around at stuff and find different interesting markets and try local restaurants and just get a really interesting experience, different from all the popular spots. And it's not better, but it's certainly different and you're more able to reflect, as opposed to being like, okay, I'm going here, here, and here. I've got to maximize my time and be fully engaged and taking pictures and asking questions. And so With solo travel, I find you can go more slowly or more quickly, depending on your preference. I like to go more slowly and not being worried about maximizing a friend's time is really helpful. And, at some point in the future, if I meet a nice lady, a significant other, then it'd be nice to travel with them and, with her and take her to different places. I don't know when that'll come or if that'll come, but it's certainly a possibility. But yeah, there's places that are more introvert friendly and places that are less introvert friendly. I would describe Mexico as being less introvert friendly. Much of Mexico, to me, just has a really fun, vibrant, outgoing scene. The weather is gorgeous. Like the people are super friendly. You've got a lot of interesting culture, and so you're like just going out and engaging. And like when every time I go to Mexico, there's always parties, and we're going out at night and listening to music and dancing and drinking and all of that. And so I love it for a week or two, but it does kind of tire me out. Places that are more introvert friendly, I would say Peru is like near the top of the list there, especially in the mountainous region. But I noticed it even in Lima. People were more reserved, more kind of kept to themselves. You didn't hear a lot of loud music going around, like just really laid back. I think Thailand is introvert friendly. Japan is probably the most introvert friendly place, but for some people, it's taken to an extreme there, like where, I was talking to a Japanese friend yesterday, and he was saying people even complain about kids playing in a park. So to me, that's taken to too much of an extreme because, you need kids, like any society needs kids. I mean, I don't have kids, but yeah, you got to have more people to like do stuff. And yeah, you got to have more people to do stuff. That's a kind of a really simplistic way to put it. But, that's to an extreme, but like, I still had a good time there. I still enjoyed it. I'd happily go back to Japan. I've thought about, going for a few months, in the future. It's harder to prioritize because I know that they are maybe less open to outsiders than some other countries. I say that as a part Japanese person, but Tony, great comments on introvert versus extrovert places. Well, thank you so much, Tony, for that super chat. That's really very generous. I really appreciate you, Tony, for your support, helping support the channel. And I've definitely got a video that I shot it today. I need to edit it. I'll probably edit it after this video, after this live stream. But yeah, just talking about, in this one, I did a video talking about why expats go broke, but this week I'll make some more content on introvert versus extrovert places. That's definitely going to come in the queue because, you're helping to support the channel, and I want to make sure I have some more to add to that. And I think a lot of people will benefit from that too, because, prior to me getting into travel to this extent, most of like what I watched was and heard about was like family travel. So people traveling with their families. When I was growing up, I traveled with my family in the US only, but still like always in a group setting, and you're trying to navigate, okay, how do we make everybody happy? Okay, we got to do some of what this person wants, some of what that person wants. When I was really little, I had no autonomy. And so it was like, oh, you want to do that? Yeah, so what? We're not going to do that. But when you're older and you have savings and you've invested and you're thinking about ways that you could enjoy some of your, your hard-earned resources, like how you can enjoy some of them, then yeah, you think about solo travel and you think about like, okay, what are the places that would make me happy? What are the places where I feel most comfortable? The places where I'm not going to feel pressured to be super outgoing. Like I said, I like some of the more outgoing places, but I like them in shorter bursts. Colombia was like that. I mean, Colombia people were very outgoing in my experience. And I was surprised at like how much I was getting invited out, like really quickly on. Like the owner of my hotel was like, hey, we have this land up in the mountains. Like, here was this picture of my family. We're all grilling out and having fun. You should come up sometime. And my Spanish was really weak back then, but I wish I would have gone with him. But do I want to be in that atmosphere all the time? I don't know. I think maybe I have some social anxiety and I'm a little bit skeptical of people that are overly friendly. I had this experience in the Philippines, so that's part of it. Is part of it is I am an introverted person, but the other part of it is that I do have some caution when I'm traveling abroad. I often say, like, you're going to a new place, you don't have any friends there. Maybe you have some online friends you're going to meet up with, people you've vetted, you've engaged with them, talked to them, maybe had some chats like this with them. But if a random stranger comes up to me in the United States, I'm definitely going to be on guard. But even traveling outside the US, I'm going to be somewhat on guard. If it's not through the context of a work meeting or we're meeting up over a hobby or there's some clear objective there, I do have some sense of caution in my mind. Like, are they going to ask me for, money, or are they going to ask me for, to borrow my cell phone, or some kind of obvious, overt, over the top, risky situation. And so that's the other part of it. I mean, I remember when I was in Cusco, funny enough, because I do like Cusco a lot, but this young punk rocker, and for some reason in Colombia and Peru, it's these punk rocker kids that, like, and that's the best way for me to describe it, but they have these wristbands and they go and they try to put it on your hand and then ask you for money. And so this guy and this girl came up to me, and the guy opens his mouth to start talking, and I just look him in the eye. I'm like, no. And the girl started laughing at him. And I was like, oh, wow, I just embarrassed this guy so badly in front of his girl, or I don't know if they were just friends or whatever it was, but I didn't even let him start talking because no, I don't need stuff. Like, to me, I travel in part to kind of get something different out of life. There's nothing wrong with having stuff, buying stuff. There's some stuff that I find crucial when I'm traveling, right? Having a sturdy backpack, having some AirPods that can help, with noise cancellation. If you have dry skin, having some of this stuff, CeraVe, dry skin lotion. But I don't need the latest and greatest of everything. And so, yeah, there's nothing I'm going to buy off a random stranger on the street. And so that's part of what has me more cautious is, like, sometimes you'll have people coming up to you offering tours, and you're possibly going to get a much better price if you book online. Now, that's not always the case. You can compare and contrast, but with online, typically I can look at customer testimonials. I can look at reviews. I can get a stronger sense of, hey, is this a legit service or not? And there's certain parks, like I've been reading reviews for different parks where they're like, hey, this park is not safe. This park, like in Colombia, people were telling me when I was going to walk back down this this park in Medellin, hey, don't go back down the way you came up here. It's getting closer to dark. You're potentially going to get stolen from. So forcefully stolen from. So yeah, that's the other part of it too. Tony says, most people don't understand us introverts, especially when we travel. You are here alone. You don't go to bars. You don't want to hang out with a group, but you get it, Alex. Well, thank you, Tony. That's a really great point. I have been asked all of those questions more times than I can count, Tony. Almost every single country I go to, except for Thailand. I think Thailand naturally does attract a lot of single men for different reasons. But yeah, definitely in the Philippines. I mean, I'm getting asked that multiple times a day. Are you single? Are you married? Where's your wife? Is your wife with you? Is your wife back at the hotel? Will your wife be joining you for dinner tonight? Just it's flattering, right? It's flattering. Like, oh, you think, you think I'm married to a wonderful woman, and you assume that she's going to be joining me as well, or you think I have this big social group. I get asked that, every time I go out to dinner. I'm always getting asked how many people, and I'm always saying one person. And you definitely, I don't think it's judgment. I do think it's curiosity, and I do think it's like people are not used to that, because like when my Thai friends go out, they're almost always going out with friends. So they're not going out on their own. To them, like whatever thing they're doing, it's a group experience. It's meant to be shared. It's meant to be enjoyed with other people. And seeing just a solo person is like, uh, why aren't they with the group? You don't get that in Japan. Japan is awesome for that. They have plenty of establishments that cater to single people, and you're not going to be looked at strangely. There's ramen shops where it's just you have like a booth next to a booth and etc. But yeah, and I get that a lot. You don't go out to bars. I don't go out to bars because they seem to be one of those places where if something bad is going to happen, it seems to always happen at a bar. You know, people have pushed back on me thinking that I'm judging people that frequent bars when I warned people about bars in general. But it's like I would be doing everybody a disservice if I didn't come out and warn people, hey, going to a bar in any country has some level of risk. I'm not telling you not to go there. I'm not telling you don't have fun. I'm not telling you what to do. But whatever you do anywhere in the world, you should always have some level of risk assessment, right? So like if I know I'm going to be going to a bar, I might pull up that bar on Google Maps and look at the reviews. Are there tons of bad reviews? Have people had issues with having their drink doctored, which happens in Medellin. Medellin is notorious for that right now, unfortunately. Would I go back to Medellin? Absolutely. It's a gorgeous city with a lot of cool things going on. The weather is like my favorite weather in the world, the city of eternal spring. But I would have to be keeping that in the back of my mind that, hey, if I go out and have drinks, which I've gone out in Bogota and had drinks with friends, but I go with local friends that I've known for a while, I can trust, and people that are going to look out for my safety and my best interests, and people that aren't going to pressure me to drink. Sometimes you want to go out to a bar, but maybe you've got to be up early the next day for a tour, or you've got some pre-existing plans. So yeah, I'm right there with you, Tony. No reason to feel bad about that, but I totally get why you feel that kind of pressure, because I get that a lot. And then when it comes to you don't want to hang out with a group, yeah, I mean, to me, like I've had group travel interrupted by other group members, having some kind of personal challenge. Maybe they get homesick in some cases, whatever the reason may be. There's so many different reasons why group travel I've found to be more difficult. Am I opposed to it? Not at all. I'm definitely open to it. And whenever I go to any city, I like to make local friends. Some of the time I have pre-existing local friends, but if I don't, I'll make them. And then I'll hang out with that small group. So like one of the challenges that I found is that to some people, the group needs to be as large as possible. If we don't have the entire bar going to party with us, then it's not a good experience. And when the group gets too big, it's almost like working at a company with too many people. People become numbers and it gets disjointed, and it can just be kind of hectic too in my mind to keep track of like 20 or 30 different conversations going on. So I like to go out if I decide to go out with a group or, a friend, like one or two people, maybe two or three people. But when it gets to be too big, it's just too much to keep track of. And I prefer like smaller groups if possible, or just being solo because I can go at my own pace. I don't have anybody, saying, oh, that sounds boring. I don't feel bad if I want to crash early one night and not be out. Vice versa, if I want to stay out late one night, I'm not coming back and interrupting somebody who's maybe been sleeping for a while. Maybe they wanted to go to bed earlier. So you have a lot of flexibility in solo travel. And also with group travel, you also run the risk where you may not meet as many people. Because I found sometimes during group travel, the group is so focused on itself that there's this sort of consensus of like, we're hanging out with each other. We're doing this to spend time together. And the experiencing the place may go on the back burner. And it may, the other members of the group may have different priorities. Like they may only want to go to museums, or they may only want to go to the beach, or they may not want to try the local food. And you may be a person that's the opposite, that you don't want to go to the beach and you only want to have local food. And so, being a solo traveler is amazing. I think it can also be more cost efficient, because when I was younger and I traveled with my family, they always insisted on staying in nice hotels. And I don't need that, right? Like, I stay in decent places, but I'm just as happy staying in the $20 a night hotel as I am in the $100 a night hotel. Is it going to be as big? No. Is it going to have the fancy service? No. But when I'm traveling, I'm there to engage with that place. I'm there to enjoy that place, to go out and to spend time in that place. And the hotel is not as much of a priority, where if you're with people who have a higher expectation, you may be thinking, I don't need to spend $150 a night on a hotel. Like, I don't want to split a $300 a night hotel room. I'm fine with spending $20 a night. And also with dining, you may think, I don't need to spend $100 on a meal. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. I've had some great fine dining experiences back in the States, but you may be looking for quantity over quality, but I don't think that's a fair comparison, because to me, I've been to a lot of different places. It's true in Thailand. It's true in Peru. Parts of Peru, like Lima, not so much. The ingredients will be different, but like in Cusco, if you go to a fancy restaurant versus a local restaurant, they're often serving the exact same food. Like, they're often serving the exact same fish, the exact same vegetables, but you're paying a premium to dine in that fancy environment. And so if you don't have that expectation, if you're not like, if you don't feel like you have to have the best of the best, and the people that you travel with do feel like that, which there's nothing wrong with that, but if that's a fundamental difference, then they may be let down by your budget consciousness, and you may not be able to keep up with their vacation mode. Because that's one of the things that comes to mind is, like, I do have friends coming here to Thailand in a few months. Unfortunately, I'll be gone by then. But I thought in my mind, would it be challenging, because they're here on vacation budget and I'm here on a day-to-day life budget. So they're here for a month, and they're trying to maximize their time, right? Because it's their first time. It's going to be a wonderful experience for them. They're going to be in a big city with a whole lot of cool stuff to do. And for me, am I going to be able to afford every time, it's more efficient to hop in a cab time-wise, or more efficient to maybe eat at a nicer restaurant, or for whatever it is, am I going to be able to keep up with that when I'm on long-term living mode? So that's another difference between the group travel and the solo travel, is that you may have different expectations as far as timeline and expenses go. Hey, Big XL Energy. Just joining, but are you planning on sticking around Thailand, moving from Chiang Mai to somewhere else? That's a great question, Big XL Energy. So currently I'm in Bangkok, actually, and I have been here since the 1st of May. So I came back up from Krabi. I'll pull that up, actually. I was in Krabi here for the month of April. And then I came back up here to Bangkok to do my visa extension. And I decided, like, okay, do I want to go back to Chiang Mai? Because the burning season ran late this year. So the burning season actually ran until mid-May. And so I decided, you know what, why don't I just spend the rest of my time here in Bangkok? So I'm here in Bangkok, and I will be here for 3 more weeks. And so there's, I think, 4 or 5 things I want to do in the next 3 weeks. I want to check out the Green Lung. I want to check out the Jim Thompson House, and a couple of other things that I mentioned earlier in stream. But I'll be going to Vietnam. So that was kind of a long-winded way of answering your question. But my plan is to head to Vietnam on July 8th. So that's 3 weeks from today. I'll fly out from Dam Muang Airport. Oh, very cool. You're familiar with the Green Lung. Yeah, it'll be my first time. I'm going to take a bus down there to the pier, and then I'll take a boat over to the park, and I'm really looking forward to it. It seems epic. And I've been hearing about Green Lung for a long time. Like, people have been telling me about it for years. Like, you got to check out the Green Lung. It's this perfect oasis from the hustle and bustle of the big city. And I think that's what I'm in for. Have fun in Vietnam. Which city you're headed to? Thank you, Big XL Energy. I'm looking forward to it a lot. I think Vietnam's going to be a blast. I'll be headed to Da Nang, so we can pop back over there. And I suspect, in relation to Tony's question, talking about Da Nang, I suspect Da Nang and Vietnam will be less introvert friendly, because I hear that it can be just a really noisy place. So it's developing. So there's a lot of construction going on throughout Vietnam, tons of development. These AirPods were made in Vietnam, for example. So there's tons of manufacturing coming to Vietnam. Vietnam produces a lot of different physical goods, not just in electronics, but also textiles, also food. And so all that production can be noisy, right? You've got goods being transported. You've got ports. You've got a lot of international businesses with a presence in Vietnam. And so I suspect it'll be less introvert friendly. I've also heard people are very social in Vietnam. They have a lot of karaoke going on there, similar to the Philippines, which some people like, right? Like, you've got some people that are really into singing, really into going out to the bar and like trying out some tunes and meeting up with their friends. And you've got other people that maybe they're not as much of a fan of the singing. Maybe they, feel like the singing goes on too late. Maybe they feel like the songs are not the songs they want to hear. Maybe they think your music sucks. And so you have the dichotomy there, right? Of some people that love that, and then other people that they may not enjoy that as much. I'll have to gauge with my boots on the ground. And that would be an interesting book, Tony, or ebook or some kind of written thing that I could share with the audience, is doing something where I talk about which countries or cities or places are more introvert friendly, and then list my reasons why. Do you have quiet accommodation? Do you have restaurants that are comfortable with solo travelers? How often do you get asked, why are you alone? Where's your group? Who are you traveling with? Where's your wife? Other things. Are there, how basically a guide that talks about how I'm received as a solo traveler in each of the countries that I go to. Because I think a lot of other solo travelers are interested to find out, hey, what are the places that are good for me? I think Japan is awesome. Portugal is awesome. Peru. That's probably my trifecta. Maybe Thailand would, and for a fifth one that I've been to, I can't think off the top of my head. Probably Taiwan. I've had a layover there. Haven't really spent time there. But having five, those five would probably be my top picks: Portugal, Peru, Japan, Taiwan, Thailand, places where you're going to be more accepted as a solo traveler, where people aren't going to be questioning as to why you're traveling alone, what your plans are there. In the Philippines, people looked at me like I was an alien. When I told them I'm traveling alone, people looked at me like I literally landed in the Philippines from Mars, and just so confused. I mean, just totally surprised by that. I'm not here judging the white Filipinos. They're super social. And so to them, why would you not be in a group? Why would you not be with your friends or your family? It's a place that gets me out of my shell for sure. And the people, they're just so hospitable and so warm that it's it does force me to be a bit more outgoing, to engage, because the people are so different than me. It's hard to understate how different the people are from me as far as personality goes. Like they tend toward being cheerful and social, and I tend toward being a bit neurotic and introverted. And so there's an interesting dichotomy there. I have yet to test it out in the long term. I will say at the end of my trip last time to the Philippines, I did feel like, okay, I need, um, I need to be in a place where I don't have to talk to people. These people are really nice, but I'm just like so tired from having so many conversations with so many people and meeting so many people. You're just constantly meeting people in the Philippines. People are introducing you to their friends or their coworkers. Um, it's comical, right? Because like a lot of these things are why people love the Philippines. And I came to love it too, but it was definitely tricky for me to like, why are they being so nice to me? Why do they want to hang out with me? Why do they want to talk? Why do they want me to try this food? Why do they want me to do this? And it really shifted my perspective. And the people there are just gems and um, so funny and zany and yeah, a lot of kind-hearted people in the Philippines. Um, Tony says, yes, Alex, I think if you did an introvert focused channel ebook, you could really find a niche. Yeah, I think that's a great point, Tony, because I don't hear or see introvert friendly travel stuff. Like a lot of the videos I see are couples traveling, or you also got a lot of family travel channels. You don't get as much of like, hey, I'm just a solo traveler going by myself. This is my experience. This is what I like. This is what I didn't like. This is what this was a positive sign to me. This was an experience I wouldn't want to repeat. And yeah, I could do that for every country I've been to. Portugal, just as an example, a brief rundown of the places that I've been. Portugal is the third most peaceful country in the world based on a certain list I read, and I can agree to it. I was walking around in the Algarve. Of course, it was off season, but even then, I was like, man, this place is so chill. Like, it's developed. You see plenty of nice condo apartment buildings, beautiful old homes, but it's just quiet. Like, it was just so quiet and calming, and I felt so recharged. I was so confused when I was walking around in the Algarve too, and I'd see these fishermen, and they're talking in like a calm tone of voice where they can hear each other. They're not like shouting really far from each other. They're not like, I don't know, using a loudspeaker. Like, this was by the docks, where if I go to the docks in like Berkeley, there's dogs barking, there's people running around. Like, it's just kind of a hectic environment compared to Portugal. Peru, people would smile and engage and talk, and but they wouldn't be over the top about it. They wouldn't be pushy about it. You could make some brief small talk and go about your day. If you went to a restaurant, you felt like the quality of the food there is so good. People are having to work really hard to make that awesome stuff. So they're not trying to have distractions as much. Like, Peruvians work really hard. And I saw that a lot when I was there. And I think anybody that goes there will appreciate that some of the stuff they do is super labor intensive. They're doing things the old school way, and the old school way can be more time consuming. It can just, it's just not as like press a button and it's done. Like some of the things that we have in the US and the Western democracies, it's so convenient, it's so comfortable. We have too much time on our hands sometimes. I know that sounds antithetical when you consider the demands of the work culture, but outside of the work culture, most people are quite comfortable. Even the culture of noise threshold, introverts need to know places like that. Central Mexico City can be overwhelming with the noise. People like us need to know how to avoid it. Yeah, that's a great point, Tony. I've been warned about that too, about Mexico City. Like, hey, people told me, I know you like Mexico. Be prepared if you go to Mexico City. It is a vibrant, hustle and bustle kind of a place, very similar to a Bangkok, for example, where or a Ho Chi Minh City, where it's lively. I mean, people are working, they're partying, they've got family events, they've got cultural events, they've got a lot going on, and it's a place where people are trying to make it too. Like it's kind of like in LA or New York in America, where you've got people moving there from all over, trying to make their mark on the world, and inevitably that's going to create some noise. Matt says solo travel is the best. Yeah, I definitely agree, Matt. I think solo travel is fantastic, and uh, you have just so many opportunities as a solo traveler to meet different people, to make new friends. Like it's way easier to tack yourself onto a group for a short time if you're just like visiting and like, hey, let's go do this, or hey, let's go do that. And so, yeah, that's a great point. Welcome to the stream, by the way, Matt. Also, you can discuss dating abroad as an introvert? Lots of unique subjects you could cover. Yeah, that's a great point too. Thank you so much, Tony, because I appreciate you sharing this with me, because I have been going in different directions and not really sure what to cover. But I think this is a really valuable thing. And I could cover traveling in the US as well, like traveling, whenever I eventually go back home to go back to work. There's a lot I could cover there. The US is not introvert friendly. Well, it depends on where you go. But I found overall, because the need to hustle and grind is so high, you naturally have to engage a lot more with other people than in Thailand, where I don't have to engage with people much at all. Or I can, depending on where I go in the city, I can engage with people not at all or almost not at all, or I can engage with people a lot. So there's a lot of choice or variety there. Also, introverts, especially if they don't know of the concept, often feel guilty for being introverted. So a channel that tells them it's okay might be well received. Yeah, that's a great point, Tony. A channel where we talk about covering those topics, like how to deal with being judged as an introvert trap. Man, wow. Okay, this is great. Thank you, Matt. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I think, some of the stuff I'm trying to cover is stuff that I don't really see people talk about. And I would say some might perceive of it in a negative way. My issue is just the amount of people telling you on YouTube, telling you online, just go travel. That's going to solve all your problems. Yeah, where you live and where you go has a major impact on your life. And many of my most life-affirming experiences have been outside the United States as an adult. I had a great time at different points growing up in the US, but it's just changed so much. And these life-affirming experiences, they've changed who I am. They've opened up my mind to a lot of different possibilities. They've showed me more of what's out there. And I want people to be aware of some of the downsides, because I think people feel like, okay, I'm traveling, it should be awesome, 24/7, it should be a blast. But sometimes we deal with stresses. One of the things that popped up in the Digital Nomad channel is somebody said, oh, you travel the world, or subreddit, the Digital Nomad subreddit, oh, you travel the world, it must be just a constant life of luxury and you must be just happy all the time. And it's no, you see a lot of heavy stuff. You travel long enough outside of the developed world, outside of Canada, the United States, the UK, then you're going to see some stuff that weighs on you. It's different for everybody. People may be bothered by different things. One person feels like, it's not much of a big deal. Somebody else might be really affected by that. And that's different for every person. But I feel like without making accusations, without getting into specifics, extreme specifics to the point where it's potentially disparaging, potentially against the rules, talking about that, and talking about loneliness, for example, in my most recent video, and I've done a few videos on that people should be prepared for that. If you're used to back home having the structure of your work environment where you don't feel lonely, because some people love their jobs, they love their coworkers, they find their work interesting and meaningful. and you go from that to now you're traveling abroad and presumably you're not working. uh, you don't, I found it to be the case that I don't really make friends at work. I can get along with people, but there's just something where it's like we all agree, oh yeah, we'll talk after and we'll stay in touch. But that has never been the case at any of the jobs I've worked. It's we've stuck to being professional, and that's fine. Like I don't expect to make friends at work, but if you have a social outlet there, and then you go abroad where you don't have that social outlet, then yeah, some people can feel lonely, and some of loneliness is self-derived. I'm not saying all of it is, but if you're the type of person, I don't think any of my subscribers are this way, but if you're the type of person that's constantly judging the environment around you, like, oh, why do they eat that? Oh, why do they wear that? Oh, why, why are they doing that job? This and that, then that will isolate you from people. I don't think the people on my channel are like that. I think we're all open-minded and considerate people. We like the people and the places that we go to. But other avenues to loneliness, in my experience, have been just language barrier, right? Like, what is it like to just not be able to go and have conversations at the level that you're used to on a consistent basis? Like in the US, I can just walk up to almost anybody and just talk to them, and there's not going to be any communication barrier there. So not having that depth can add to loneliness. I think also seeing people in groups where like you're watching, you get the sense as an introvert traveler sometimes that you're watching people live their lives, and that can be isolating. Like walking by, a graduation party, or walking by a wedding, people doing their wedding photos, or you see all kinds of stuff like this when you're traveling long term that you may not see back home because you're just focused on work. You're not really thinking about anything besides work. You're moving too quickly to really think about the world around you. And then you're traveling, and you see a woman like crying, going through a tough breakup. She just got dumped. Or you see a guy picking his kid up from school, and they're having to like sit in traffic. You just see people living their lives, and it can make you feel a bit dissociated at times, or a bit detached, because your life is on pause, right? You're doing this thing that most people don't really do that much. And even if you do it, nobody's taking your exact steps. Nobody's taking your exact trip. And so it can feel isolating that way, where it's like you're back in your home country, you're thinking about that one time you were in Peru, or that one time you were in Thailand, or that one time you were in Mexico. And you can only really talk to, you're in this third space. There's the people who have never left their home country. There's the people who are living in that foreign country and from that foreign country, but you're like neither one. Like I was talking to Pete from Irish Times a few months back, and he was saying, I've had to toughen up coming back to the West. I've had to develop a thicker skin. I was used to being in Thailand, where people were very like soft-spoken and non-confrontational and just, laid back. And then coming here back to where he's from Dublin, Ireland. Being in Ireland, people are kind of a little bit more rough around the edges. They're a little bit more stressed out. They're a little bit less patient. And so that's part of it too, is that the travel kind of changes you and shifts your perspective. And for me, part of it was hard because I realized I'm not going to be one of these people. Like in some of the countries that I go to, in America, Americans come in all shapes, colors, sizes, languages, religions, ethnicities. All the differences that you could think of differ from American to American. But in some of these other countries, it's much more homogenous. It's a monoculture. Like when I was in Cusco seeing this Peruvian woman, she would hang out with her friends that grew up in the same neighborhood. They all went to the same high school. They listened to the same music. They dressed similarly to one another. They had the same accent. And like, as an outsider, like, hey, I can't ever be Peruvian. Maybe you can. I mean, Peru is diverse. They have like Chinese Peruvians. They have Japanese Peruvians. I think they even have Filipino Peruvians. I've been learning about that, which has been super interesting. about how they brought Filipinos to the Latin colonies, and vice versa. They brought some, maybe not Filipinos in Peru, they have Peruvians in the Philippines. But that's been super interesting. But yeah, thank you so much, Matt, and Tony as well, for enjoying the topics and letting me know that they've been good. I want to get back into and grind out the next 3 weeks in Bangkok, make as much content as I can before I head to Vietnam, because it'll probably be a minute before I'm back here. Tony says, I was going to get back to work 10 minutes ago, but this topic has really engaged me and my mind is racing now. So work can wait. Well, thank you so much, Tony. That's very thoughtful. I appreciate your support. It really means a lot to me. I still consider my channel very, very early on. I'd like to eventually move to doing it full time, being eventually hitting financial independence and then putting all of my energy into the channel, because it's just so much fun. It's so much fun to connect with people like you and to be able to share insights and hear about your perspective and hear about like what's on your mind and what your thoughts are. Tony says, Matt Serber, yes, his loneliness video and the one about wherever you go, there you are really spoke to me. Yeah, that's something that's been tough for me because I expected to just press a happiness button when I got here to Thailand. I expected as soon as I landed for everything to be perfect. And that wasn't the case. When I landed, I was exhausted. I'd come from Finland. I didn't sleep, even though I got like a place to stay in Helsinki, because the sun in the summer doesn't really go down. I didn't get any sleep. So I show up in Bangkok. I get through immigration. I'm exhausted. I'm riding the train into this city and I'm looking at all the people around me commuting and just feeling super confused and just kind of out of place and like, where am I? And like, did I really sign up for this for a year? Am I really back here 3 years later? It's been wild. I'm so glad I did it, by the way. I'm so glad I committed to coming here for a year. But it wasn't happiness automatically. And then happiness came about because I met up with some of my Thai friends I hadn't seen since before the pandemic. They were very generous. It took me out to a nice meal. Then I started like rediscovering parts of Bangkok that I hadn't spent time in several years. Made it up to Chiang Mai, reconnected with friends up there. Started to slow down. Like I didn't quit walking as fast. When I first got here, I was walking super fast. Oh, got to go here, got to go there. I got to get around. I got to do stuff. Go. Because that's what I'm used to in the US is I've got to go and maximize every second of every day because I work long hours. Just being in sales, it naturally comes with long hours. And then all my time after work, I've got to do chores. I've got to go do the laundry. I've got to go get groceries. Oh, if I want to eat healthy, I need to get groceries every few days. I've got to pay my taxes. I've got to do this, that. And you're constantly just ping-ponging from thing to thing to thing. And so coming here, I was still in that hyped up rush mode. And I had to learn how to slow down and take things one day at a time and like, hey, give them a second to bring your check. Like in the US, everything is, they're trying to turn the tables over as fast as possible to get the business. And here, that's not always the case. I mean, there's some restaurants that are very leisurely. They're not expecting to serve tons of people, or they're not expecting to turn out food super, super fast on like just a random weekday. And so all these things are things to consider. In Bangkok, I had to speed it up a bit, to be honest, because certain parts of Bangkok are like the financial district near where I'm living. Other parts of the city that are tourist heavy, like you have to be cognizant that people are on their way to work, similar to New York City. But if you're not in those areas, it's important to slow down, because can I really be happy when I'm constantly like tapping my foot? Okay, I got to walk around them, or okay, I hope they hurry up, or okay, I hope there's space for me on the BTS train. And like, I'm not here working in a standard 9 to 5. So I've got to really just keep my patience. And I hope when I go back to the US, I don't fully lose that Thainess, because my mind just feels so much more calm here. And I'm just just a lot happier here. Matt says, traveling solo forces you to be more outgoing. Introversion lessons outside the USA for me. That's been 100% the case for me too, Matt. In the US, like I feel just you're just, I don't know if you're like this. This has been my feeling. I'm always worried about tomorrow. I'm always worried about, okay, what if some bill comes up that I've got to pay? Okay, what chores did I put off this week that I need to go do? Um, do I have, uh, you know, do I have my schedule packed? Am I maximizing my time this weekend? If I want to go out to the beach, I better do it on a Saturday or Sunday. I can't do it during the week. And so I'm always trying to just like chase tomorrow. And my mind is going so fast, I can't really slow down enough to connect and socialize. And a lot of my friends struggle with that. I mean, I have friends that, they apologize. I'll reach out to them and they won't get back to me. Like, man, I'm sorry. I've just been working so many hours this week, this month, this year that I just haven't had time to socialize. And I can empathize with that and appreciate that. I've been in the same position. And it's, yeah. And so when I'm not focused on the grind, I'm not trying to be maximum efficiency all the time. I'm not worried about permits and insurance and rent and paperwork and leases and job and phone calls and emails and just the endless ping ponging. Like I do open up a bit more. I do stop to talk to people. Like in the US, I've had people try to make conversation like, nope, sorry, gotta go do stuff. Like don't have time. And that's more accepted in San Francisco area because everybody there is busy all the time. But in other parts of the country, like you definitely hit some friction when you're trying to get through the thing as fast as possible. Now it's changing. I think America, the pace keeps speeding up, and there are small towns in the U.S. that I've been to where things have picked up pace a lot. Like service has gotten a lot faster and more efficient than it was in the past, and some people like it, some people don't. But yeah, I think when I'm outside the U.S., I'm more open to talking to people. I'm more open to stopping and kind of joking around with people. Thai people are so funny and like to joke around and laugh a lot. And I've had a lot of really nice moments of connection. Sometimes I'll have somebody staring at me because I'm just like looking around, scanning my environment. And then I'll say, hi, I'll say Sawati Kap. And they break into a smile and warm up like, oh, wow, he's trying some Thai, even though he's clearly not Thai. He's trying to use our language and relate to us. And so there's a lot of really special experiences like that where it forces me to be more social too. And I find too, like in other countries, and you may relate to this as well, Matt, with your upcoming move to Thailand, but in some other places, people aren't as judgmental. So I feel like in the West, people are often taught to be judgmental. I don't know if it's even throughout the country. I found it to be even. I found people in California to be equally judgmental as people in Tennessee. They're just different. They're just judgmental about different things. So in Tennessee, they might be judgmental about the church that you go to, whereas in California, they may be judgmental about the neighborhood you live in. But there is this kind of status conscious or status driven environment in the United States. And I think the Western democracies in general, where people are always trying to size each other up, trying to figure out what they can get from them or how they can get ahead. And I just don't experience that nearly as much in other parts of the world. Does it exist to some extent? Sure. That's going to be a thing everywhere. Everywhere that we have limited resources, then people will struggle over resources. But I just find that people have other things going on in that they have more practice. Like that's been a tough realization. And I think Tony and Matt, you may appreciate this. I know some people in the US that they're not introverted. They're just unpleasant to be around. So they complain a lot about not having much of a social life or not connecting with other people. But they spend all their time putting people down, judging people, talking about what people should and shouldn't do, what people should and shouldn't believe, how people should operate, how people shouldn't operate. And by the end of it, there's nobody left to like listen to their judgments or their criticisms. And I just don't experience that as much. Now, some people will tell me, oh, you just can't understand what they're saying. And it's like, no, I do. It's if people make a joke, it's often more lighthearted. It's not meant to humiliate. which does seem more common in the US. I mean, I just see people trying to humiliate each other on a fairly consistent basis. It's unfortunate, but it's just part of the culture, the grind, the, raw, unfettered capitalism, where people do feel like they're competing at the highest levels for resources. There's this efficiency there that is not as common abroad, which I like. I don't necessarily need things to be ultra efficient every single step of the way. For what it's worth, I find Thai people in Thailand to be pretty efficient. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but I do find that people are often very patient here with me, me being an outsider. I think more patient at times than the same people would be received in the US. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on it. I agree with you, Matt, that traveling abroad has made me get out of my shell more, connect with people more, talk to people more. And that's what I'm looking forward to about the Philippines is my buddy, who I'm going to go hang out with in Mindanao. He's already introducing me to his coworkers on video chat. Like he'll call me up on video chat on a slow day at his work, and he'll pass the phone around. And now I'm meeting, these people before I even get there. I'm already meeting different people and being forced to talk to different people. And normally, like, my feeling back home is, I don't want to talk to people. I have to talk to people all day at work. But I'm like, okay, if you insist, I'll talk to you. And this guy I met, a buddy of my friends. He's like, I will introduce you to some nice women here, not gold diggers. And I just thought that was so funny. I'm like, gold diggers are barking up the wrong tree. They're talking to me, but I appreciate your enthusiasm, man. Because, some countries like the Philippines, they have the perception that most foreigners that come there are very well-to-do, right? That they have a lot of excess resources. They're able to buy an international plane ticket. They are able to pay rent on typically a nice place, a place that's, maybe brand new, maybe have some modern amenities that are less common in their area. Maybe the foreigner can have meals at the nicest restaurant in town on a regular basis. I'm not in that, by the way. When I go to the Philippines, I'm getting a local style apartment. I'm going to be eating at carinderias. I'm going to be spending time outdoors. I'm not going to be doing it high on the hog over there. Partly out of choice, partly out of wanting to stretch my money, but partly also because I want a different life, than what I'm used to. And that's what the Philippines has to offer. It's just a very vibrant, I use that word too much, but a very vibrant lifestyle. And yeah, I would agree, Matt, 100%. The atmosphere in America creates the need for introversion. Yeah, I mean, and I'll respond to Tony real quick and then get back to this point. I have to get going. Thanks for the great talk, Alex. Well, thank you so much, Tony, for the super chat and all the information. Your support means the world to me. It's been so great to talk with you today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, Tony. But yeah, back to what Matt was talking about. Yeah, I mean, in America, you have to be cautious. You have to be cautious. You have to be skeptical. You've got people on the street, like if you're in certain areas, approaching you, asking you for money. You've got people, where I lived in California, casing out your car, trying to figure out they can break in, what they're going to get at your job. Not your job, but like at jobs I've had in the past, you have to figure out who's trying to push you out so they get the promotion, or who's trying to take your credit for what you did at work. And so America's really shifted from a high trust society to more of a low trust society now. Unfortunately, I do get some of these out of touch people that are like, oh, it's the Browns, it's the brown people, this and that, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that's an overly simplistic thing to point at. Do I think it has caused some challenges in America? I mean, naturally, I've seen some people within my own family who don't subscribe to the American ethos and have brought their culture with them to America. And but I think they're not the majority. I think a lot of people come to America that they want to make America even better. They want to contribute. They want to work hard. They want to produce something of value. They want to they want to start a business of some kind. And it's really just like an imbalance in the system. America is just not a balanced place right now. Things have kind of swung to the extremes, and we're seeing a lot of different side effects from that. I think in America, one of the things that a buddy of mine said to me a while back was, nobody wants to fix the problems anymore. We just want to make enough money that the problems don't apply to us. And I think that's kind of where America is at, is people are just trying to get theirs, and it's turning in every person for themselves kind of a place. And when you get into this system where you think everybody is just looking out for themselves, you naturally have to adopt some of that yourself just to survive, just to make it, so that you don't get taken advantage of, so that you don't get ripped off. And I just don't have that experience near to the same extent traveling abroad. It happens a bit, but it's not like a daily occurrence where I'm getting spam calls every single day about my car warranty, about some kind of crypto scam, about who knows what it could be. But you're not just having to field constant pressure. And so you have to have these ultra high boundaries in the modern world. And you go to a more old school kind of a place, you don't have that to the same extent. It's just not as easy for people to bug you. You can create more space between yourself and the outside world. You can be more selective about the people that you deal with. Like if you go get a job, you're in the US, you've got to work at that company with those people, and you don't have that flexibility. Whereas if you're traveling, you're financially independent, if you don't like a town, if you don't like a condo building, if you don't like a restaurant, just don't go back. Move to a different city, move to a different building, try some different food. You have a lot more flexibility living this kind of lifestyle outside of the US. But I'll probably wrap it up here in the next 5-10 minutes, because I'm starting to lose my voice a bit. I've been talking for several hours with you all. It's been so wonderful to chat with everybody tonight. Feel free to throw any comments or questions or thoughts. Can't thank Tony and Matt enough for chiming in, as well as some of the folks we had earlier in the stream, Isaac, Daniel, Christopher, and Sleeping Elephant and Solar Transient. We had quite a few people on here. Yeah, it was great to catch up, Matt. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your move to Thailand and following that. And yeah, I think it's going to be wonderful for you. But yeah, well, thanks so much, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I think we've had a great stream, covered a lot of ground. I've got a lot of creative inspiration from this conversation. And yeah, I look forward to chatting soon. I hope everybody has a great week ahead. Bye-bye.